Welcome to Facts and Facts. Recently, I watched a Netflix documentary about Albert Einstein called Einstein and the Bomb. It focused on the period in his life after he fled Germany, how his theory of relativity laid the foundation for the atomic bomb, and a letter he sent to President Roosevelt in 1939. In this letter, he warned the president of the potential of Nazi Germany to develop the bomb and urged him to start our own nuclear research program. Any of us who have an affinity for physics know the basics about the creation of the atomic bomb and Einstein's role in it. And I would venture to say that 85% of Western civilization knows who Albert Einstein is. I would highly recommend that all of you watch this documentary, whether you know the basics or the name Einstein from a science class. It's enlightening and gives a fresh perspective on that period in history. As I watched and listened to Einstein's words and listened to the archival news reports that they stitched throughout, I could not help but see the parallels between 1930s Germany and Europe as a whole with today. I sensed a familiarity in the events he and the world were living through with the events I and my fellow Americans are living through right now. It's eerie how similar what took place in Germany between 1932 and 1939, the growing and rampant nationalism, the vilification of the Jews, undermining and contradicting scientific fact, banning books, burning books, forcing educational institutions to teach and revise history, to what is going on in the United States and in other democracies throughout the world today, the growing nationalism, vilifications of the other, namely immigrants, defunding scientific research, banning books, intimidating institutions of higher learning. Without coming right out and saying it, the documentary was yelling to us from almost 100 years ago not to repeat the same mistakes. That's how I interpreted it, at least. Better yet, that's what I heard as I watched it. To channel a Planck-sized bit of Einstein, in quantum physics, there's a term called superposition. It means the act of placing one thing on or above another, especially so that they coincide. Using a micro example, superposition refers to quantum particles being in multiple states before they are measured or observed. To give you a real world example, imagine a spinning coin. While the coin is spinning, it's in a superposition of both heads and tails until it stops and lands on its definitive state of heads or tails. Now, let's add the letters I and M to the middle of superposition, and you get the word superimposition. Superimposition means the act of placing or laying one thing over another, typically so that both are still evident. We superimpose images onto other images or add a new concept onto another to find different meanings or new patterns. As I watched the documentary, in my mind, both superposition and superimposition applied to it. My mind superimposed what Einstein and the world were experiencing then, and I overlaid it onto the real time events of our collective today. Some things moved in sync, while others were lagging or moving ahead of the other, either slightly or completely off. At the same time, and this analogy might sound weird, I don't care. I don't give a shit. But as I took in this documentary, it was as if my reality was in a superposition, spinning and waiting to stop in its definitive state. Will we fall into a state of fascism, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, hatred, and division like the world of the 1930s? Or will we stop on something else entirely? It is as if the world is waiting for enough people to make their measurements to agree on a definitive reality. Einstein was asked to give a speech at Royal Albert Hall in London, 1933. The excerpts used in the documentary of this speech are what inspired me to do this video. Einstein was initially reluctant to add his voice to the chorus of anti-Nazi sentiment that was growing in Britain and the Allied West. The feeling was that it would not help and would do more harm to the Jews living in Germany. Einstein was a committed pacifist, but also an unconditional anti-fascist. He knew the German population had been poisoned by nationalism. And he knew, even in 1933, way before they invaded Austria or Poland, that they were being primed for war. Despite his pacifism, he believed that only organized force could oppose organized force. One of the great quotes of the documentary was, "The world is in greater peril from those who tolerate or encourage evil than from those who actually commit it." It was him facing the reality that his silence would have made him feel guilty and complicit in the atrocities going on in Germany that he chose to ultimately give that speech. I'll put a link to the speech in the description below. The documentary is more concise with its translation of the speech. It has its own creative liberties, but I'll quote a few excerpts from the speech itself. "It cannot be my task today to act as judge of the conduct of a nation which for many years has considered me as her own. Perhaps it is an idle task to judge in times when actions count. Today, the questions which concern us are, how can we save mankind and its spiritual acquisitions of which we are the heirs? How can one save Europe from a new disaster? Discontent breeds hatred, and hatred leads to acts of violence and revolution, and often even to war. Thus, distress and evil produce new distress and new evil. If we want to resist the powers which threaten to suppress intellectual and individual freedom, we must keep clearly before us what is at stake and what we owe to that freedom which our ancestors have won for us after hard struggles. Without such freedom, there would have been no Shakespeare, no Goethe, no Newton, no Faraday, no Pasteur, and no Lister. Shall we worry over the fact that we are living in a time of danger and want? I think not. Only through perils and upheavals can nations be brought to further development. May the present upheavals lead to a better world." Throughout my lifetime, the threat of extremism and the threat of nuclear annihilation were either across vast oceans or at the periphery, hidden in the dark crevices of the United States. Call me naive or call me foolish, but I've never thought we would be where we are today. I never thought it possible for the United States of America to drunkenly stumble its way onto the precarious ledge that drops into the abyss of fascism and authoritarianism, our hands held by people holding the poisoned drink of nationalism. For a moment, and by a moment I mean years, I sat in shock, only able to repost, share, and like the dissent others had the courage to post. It wasn't until this past summer, after years of frustration, months of courage building battles in Facebook comment sections, and weeks of contemplation after the cartoony light bulb crackled to life atop my head, that I had courage enough to join the chorus of online anti fascist progressives. Einstein's first quote above is about judging a nation and how actions count. Hit me like a gut punch and an encouraging pat on the back. Sitting idle, staying silent, and tolerating what is going on right now is intolerable and wrong. We still have freedom of speech. Thank goodness. I still have the freedom to speak to resist the powers which threaten to suppress. The end of the documentary centers on Einstein's inner turmoil and regret over the development and use of the atomic bomb. A Japanese journalist, Katsuhara, sent him a letter with a series of questions, one of which directly asked Einstein, "Why did you cooperate with the production of the atomic bomb, although you were aware of its tremendous destructive power?" Einstein's reply was, "The probability that the Germans might work on that very problem with a good chance of success prompted me to take that step. I did not see any other way out." Was that a cop-out answer or the better of two evils? If history tells us one thing, it's that if we cannot learn from it, we're doomed to repeat it. I know what I think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Like I said at the top, I encourage you to watch this documentary. It plays as either a straight historical dramatization or as an allegorical what if for our time. I see it as being both. I see through the eyes and words of Albert Einstein, arguably the most important human being in history, all the bad, disturbing, evil, disgusting, flawed, destructive, petty, narcissistic, intolerable, and cynical parts of us, as well as all the good, helpful, virtuous, commendable, impeccable, creative, generous, empathetic, accepting, and idealistic parts of us. This documentary highlights the fact that our voices do matter. Our voices of reason, our voices of conscience, voices of truth, scientific voices, they all matter. Voices mattered in 1933, and your voice matters, more importantly, today. When voices are drowned out by blatant lies, subjected to the fake news label, demeaned and ridiculed, omitted and distorted, suppressed, and sometimes stripped away. Fame or infamy alone should not dictate if your voice is heard over the cacophony of noise. In the most difficult of times, it's the chorus that rises above the noise. Our world may be in a state of upheaval, but as Einstein said, may the present upheavals lead to a better world. And may your voice add to its betterment. Stay engaged. Hey, if you're liking my content, please like, subscribe, and comment. Anything and everything helps. It's really important for me to try to grow this channel, and I'm doing my best to help it grow by putting out some, I hope, good content for everyone. If you're interested in following me on my other social media platforms like Instagram or TikTok, links are in the description. And if you feel up to it and you want to donate some money to help me produce these videos, there's also a link for Venmo down there. Anything and everything will help, like I said, and I appreciate all of you. Stay engaged.